A middle-aged office worker suddenly stands inside a grand hall filled with tall pillars and a checkered floor. Moments earlier, he had been waiting on a crowded train platform directly ahead of him. A high school girl appears with her arms tightly crossed and a sharp glare. Her sudden appearance and confident presence deepen the strange atmosphere surrounding the two confused strangers. Without warning, the woman declares that the man and the girl have been selected as heroes destined to save another world. Panic spreads as the man tries to deny the accusation, while the girl angrily insists he harassed someone, turning the summoning into a moment of chaos. Tension rises as the girl angrily accuses the man, while he desperately tries to calm the situation. Doubt slowly appears on her face as she admits the man might not actually be the molester she believed he was. With a cheerful smile, the blonde woman claims she can see everything because she is a goddess. The goddess raises her hand and reveals a magical vision showing the crowded train platform from earlier that morning. Memory confirms the man had only been distracted by his phone while standing among the crowd. Magical vision clearly shows the man standing on the train while holding his phone with both hands. Hearing the explanation, the girl quietly admits that the man only looks suspicious because of his strange smirk. Feeling frustrated, the man loudly insists that although he may have dirty thoughts, he has never acted on them. After calming down, the man looks at the girl carefully and asks if she remembers him from somewhere. Silence fills the hall as doubt grows in the girl's mind. Watching closely, the goddess gently suggests that the man might actually be innocent. Goddess smiles confidently and explains that both of them have been summoned as heroes who must save another world. His request is rejected without hesitation. The goddess declares that objections are not allowed and firmly states that the two of them must defeat the Demon King together. Bright magic fills the hall as the goddess raises her arms. Large glowing lists suddenly appear in the air, revealing countless special abilities that can be granted. The massive amount of strange skills overwhelms him, making it impossible to read everything properly. Meanwhile, the girl quietly apologizes for her earlier accusation. Watching them argue again, the goddess impatiently reminds them that their time in this place is limited. Argument continues as the man angrily complains while the girl awkwardly explains that being mistaken for someone's lover would be embarrassing. Turning toward the floating list, the man feels overwhelmed by the countless strange abilities written in unfamiliar terms. Unable to decide, he desperately asks the goddess for a recommendation. Without hesitation, she casually replies that every skill on the list is recommended. The goddess then explains that the world they will enter is a fantasy land filled with swords, magic, and dangerous adventures. After hearing everything, the man reluctantly accepts the situation, realizing that escaping this strange fate may be impossible. Carefully, he selects several simple skills that seem practical and useful for survival in the unfamiliar world. While making his selection, one skill suddenly catches his attention. The unusual ability called Goddess Summon appears on the list, and curiosity pushes him to choose it as well. Nearby, the girl observes the floating skills and quietly asks about his choices, seeing the final selection. The goddess happily explains that the three chosen skills belong to the same type and will work together. Soon afterward, the goddess prepares the transfer by creating character sheets to identify them. At that moment, the girl calmly introduces herself as Mizuki Yamaze. After hearing Mizuki introduce herself, the man decides on a simple name for the new world. She describes it as a versatile role capable of fighting monsters, performing fieldwork, and even using small amounts of magic. A magical safe appears in front of them, and the goddess provides starting equipment and money to prepare them for their journey, to help them survive. The goddess also hands over a special guidebook that explains how the new world works. Finally, he checks the pouch of coins and learns it contains 100 silver pieces, enough for about 10 days at a normal inn. The man quietly looks at his phone and briefcase, realizing they will no longer be useful in the new world. She promises to grant them the ability to understand the language and reminds them to visit the Adventurers Guild. After arriving in the new world, listening carefully, Mizuki asks an important question. She wonders whether defeating the goddess responds vaguely, saying the possibility will be considered if they succeed. Her uncertain answer leaves the man uneasy. Finally, she reveals that other gods also summon people in the same way, sending 2 humans at a time into different worlds. He asks the goddess to explain more about the other gods and their purpose. Instead of answering clearly, she avoids the question. Returning to his old world would only mean living with the shame of being labeled a criminal. Mizuki quietly explains that she only reacted because she believed another student was being harassed. The tension between them gradually softens as he approaches her calmly. Silence fills the hall while the girl closes her eyes, unsure of what he intends to do. In a sudden moment, the man pulls her closer and kisses her. Shock spreads across the hall as the unexpected action leaves Mizuki completely stunned. Realizing what just happened, she quickly steps back and angrily demands an explanation from the man. Meanwhile, the man shamelessly treats the moment as part of the punishment he had accepted earlier. Furious at his attitude, Mizuki strikes him hard. The powerful blow sends him flying across the hall while she angrily calls him a pervert. Despite the commotion, the goddess cheerfully declares that it is finally time for their journey to begin. With a playful farewell, the goddess activates the transfer. As the two are sent away, she teasingly calls them lovers. In a quiet forest clearing, a middle-aged man and a high school girl stood several steps apart. Tall trees surrounded the area, and the unfamiliar environment made the situation feel strange. The man scanned the surroundings with a puzzled expression, trying to understand how they had suddenly arrived there. Soon after, they began walking along a narrow dirt path that stretched through the forest. Their destination was a town that they hoped would provide answers. The girl moved ahead with steady steps, while the man followed slightly behind, still uncertain about their situation. Every step forward felt like a cautious attempt to adapt to the unfamiliar land. During the walk, the girl suddenly noticed something unusual. Her hair color had changed after the transfer. The man examined her appearance and realized the same difference. A possible explanation formed in their minds. The transfer between worlds might have caused small physical changes from the man's observation. Her hair now appeared greener than before. Gradually, they accepted the strange circumstances surrounding them. The girl allowed the man to call her Mizuki as well. With a shared goal in mind, both of them continued their journey toward the distant town. Sunlight filtered through the trees while their footsteps echoed softly along the road. Fatigue slowly appeared on the man's face after traveling for so long without seeing anyone. Not a single person had appeared along the road since they started heading toward the town. Suddenly, the man noticed something unusual near Mizuki. His tie slipped from his hand and fell toward the ground. Mizuki bent down and picked it up without hesitation. The long cloth dangled from her hand as she examined it briefly. Instead of returning the tie immediately, Mizuki held it firmly. A small smile appeared on her face as she decided to keep it for the moment. The man's reaction was immediate as he shouted in panic. His voice broke the quiet forest while Mizuki stared at him in surprise. The tension quickly shifted their attention to the surroundings. Both of them suddenly noticed something ahead along the road. Realizing the area might not be safe, Mizuki quickly started moving. The man followed closely as she rushed forward with urgency. They left the road and pushed through the tall grass beside the trees. Dense bushes concealed their movements as they crouched low to stay hidden. Determination replaced their earlier confusion, while they carefully advanced through the forest. Hidden behind a thick tree, the man and Mizuki carefully watched the forest ahead. Uneasy thoughts crossed the man's mind as he tried to stay quiet. Strange cries echoed between the trees, making the atmosphere tense. The two observers slowly leaned forward to see what was happening deeper in the forest. Several small creatures surrounded a helpless man on the ground. The monsters raised crude clubs and struck him repeatedly without mercy. Their shrill cries echoed through the forest as the victim tried to protect himself. From their hiding spot, the middle-aged man and Mizuki realized these creatures were not human. Fear quickly filled the man's thoughts. He understood that they had no idea how strong the creatures might be, despite the danger. Mizuki's eyes showed determination rather than hesitation. Without waiting any longer, she suddenly moved forward. Mizuki rushed straight toward the goblins with surprising speed. Her movements were quick and precise as she struck the monsters before they could react. One creature was knocked away, while another staggered back from the sudden attack. Seeing her charge alone, the man reacted, instinctively. Gripping a stick tightly, he ran toward the fight. The monsters turned their attention toward them as the unexpected battle began in the middle of the forest. From behind a tree, the man and Mizuki quietly observed the source of the strange noise. A disturbing scene unfolded deeper in the forest. Several small monsters had surrounded a helpless traveler and were striking him with wooden clubs. The victim struggled on the ground while trying to shield his head from the blows. Fear and tension filled the air as the creatures shouted wildly. Uncertainty quickly spread through the man's mind. He had no idea how strong the monsters were, or whether they could survive a fight against them. Mizuki, however, showed no hesitation. Determination appeared on her face as she decided to act immediately. Mizuki moved quickly and struck the nearest goblin with a powerful kick. The creature staggered backward from the sudden blow. Her swift movements surprised the monsters, creating a brief opening in their attack. Seeing her fighting alone, the man rushed forward with a small blade in his hand. Pain shot through his body during the struggle, but he forced himself to continue. Meanwhile, Mizuki pushed back another monster with a strong strike. Energy suddenly surged around Mizuki as she activated a special ability. With controlled movements, she launched another powerful attack. The goblins recoiled from her force as the battle continued in the forest. Mizuki stood with her weapon lowered, while the forest slowly grew quiet again. Nearby, the injured traveler remained on the ground, barely conscious after the attack. The middle-aged man sat down heavily against a tree, still catching his breath after the sudden fight. After confirming the monsters were gone, Mizuki approached the man and checked his condition. He appeared exhausted but still able to move. At the same time, the injured traveler slowly regained awareness and looked toward them with surprise. From his perspective, the two strangers had suddenly appeared and defeated the goblins that attacked him. Before the situation could calm completely, several new figures arrived through the forest. A group of adventurers stepped into the clearing, wearing armor and traveling gear. One member of the party approached the injured traveler and examined his condition carefully. She confirmed that he was the person who had been attacked earlier. The man watching nearby felt nervous while observing the unfamiliar group. After checking the wounds, the adventurers decided to carry the injured traveler back to town. One of them prepared to support him while the others remained alert. The clearing slowly returned to silence as the group organized their next move. Injured traveler was carefully lifted onto the back of one of the adventurers. The man clung weakly to the armored figure as they prepared to leave the clearing. Dirt and bruises covered his body, showing how severe the goblin attack had been. The adventurer carrying the injured man walked steadily ahead, while the others followed. A symbol on the armor caught the middle-aged man's attention as he watched the group. Something about the situation felt strange, especially after hearing the word slave, which lingered uneasily in his mind. While walking, Mizuki started chatting with the female members of the adventurer party. Her friendly attitude quickly helped her connect with them. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man stayed slightly behind, observing the conversation from a distance. Compared to Mizuki's easygoing nature, he felt awkward and unsure how to interact with the new group. During the journey, Mizuki explained what she knew about the adventurers. The leader of the group was Led, a highly skilled fighter with an impressive level for someone so young. As the conversation continued, Mizuki casually revealed another detail about the group. The mage Cecily and the cleric Ayla were both close to Lead. Hearing this unexpected information surprised the middle-aged man, leaving him momentarily speechless. While walking through the forest with the adventurer party, the middle-aged man reflected on what he had learned about this world. A strange rule seemed to exist where attractive adventurers gained more attention and advantages. Citizens inside towns followed strict laws, but adventurers were treated differently and allowed more freedom. Mizuki suddenly stepped closer to him and lightly changed the topic. Her expression looked serious for a moment before returning to her usual calm attitude. The man looked confused, unsure why she suddenly wanted his attention. He opened her hand and showed him a small round object. The item had been dropped by the goblin they defeated earlier. According to her explanation, the object was called a magic seed, a rare material obtained from monsters. The man examined the small seed carefully. Items like that could raise a person's abilities or strengthen weapons and armor. Because of its rarity, it could also be sold for a high price in town. Mizuki asked if she could keep it as a charm. After thinking briefly, the man agreed and placed the seed in her hand. Mizuki accepted it with a satisfied smile. With the road leading toward town ahead of them, the two continued their journey while planning to visit the guild once they arrived. People moved through the busy roads while merchants and travelers filled the area. The architecture reminded the middle-aged man of old European cities. As he observed the unfamiliar scenery, he realized that this place must be the town called Relle. Once inside the town, the adventurer party prepared to separate. The injured traveler would be taken to the church where healing magic could treat his wounds. Meanwhile, the man and Mizuki planned to head directly to the Adventurers Guild to learn more about work in this world. Before leaving, Lead offered them a suggestion. He recommended an inn called the Big Monkey Inn, explaining that his party was currently staying there as well. The man thanked him for the advice while keeping the information in mind. As the adventurer party walked away, the middle-aged man watched them quietly. Thoughts about the group crossed his mind while he reflected on their behavior. Mizuki, however, spoke positively about Led, believing he seemed friendly and dependable. Soon after, the man and Mizuki arrived at the Adventurers Guild building. Inside, a receptionist with glasses welcomed them warmly from behind the counter. Standing at the entrance, the two newcomers prepared to begin their first steps as adventurers in the town. Inside the Adventurers Guild, the middle-aged man and Mizuki stood in front of the reception counter. The building was filled with shelves of documents and adventurers moving around the room. A receptionist with glasses greeted them politely. The man calmly explained that he wanted to register as an adventurer. New adventurers always started from the lowest rank, known as F rank. By completing quests, they could gradually increase their rank through higher levels. The system allowed adventurers to prove their ability step by step while gaining experience. After hearing the explanation, the man asked another question. Instead of looking for dangerous missions, he wanted to know if there were simple tasks that beginners could handle safely. The receptionist suggested a gathering job that involved collecting herbs around the nearby fields. However, the man suddenly asked something unexpected. With a serious expression, he leaned forward and asked where he could find the Demon King. According to the guild records, the Demon King had already been defeated 100 years earlier by the Holy Knight army. The news stunned the man, leaving him speechless, as he realized the situation was not what he had expected. Her mission had been clear: defeat the Demon King. Standing inside the guild, he faced Mizuki in silence. Both realized something was wrong, while the receptionist quietly watched their tense reaction. Inside a city building, a middle-aged man and a young girl stand at a reception counter while speaking with a staff member. News about the Demon King's defeat shocks the man. According to the information provided by the staff member, the Demon King had already been defeated 100 years earlier. The staff member continues describing the current state of the former Demon King's kingdom. Leadership of the region has been controlled by 3 influential rulers since the Demon King's fall. Stability and growth followed under their rule. Doubt begins forming in the man's mind. Possibility of incorrect historical records becomes a serious concern. Thoughts about misleading information continue to trouble him as he compares past explanations with the facts he just heard. Later, both travelers walk through the town streets. Unusual clothing quickly attracts attention from the people nearby. Realizing this problem, the girl decides they should look for outfits that match the town style. A clothing shop becomes their next stop. Various garments fill the shelves and racks around them. While searching through the store, the man notices that local fashion does not follow strict medieval designs. Influences from travelers of the past appear to have shaped the town's clothing culture. Inside the clothing shop, the man begins testing different outfits from the racks. One option includes a simple, long-sleeved shirt paired with brightly patterned shorts. The unusual combination makes the girl uneasy. Her reaction quickly grows more serious as she realizes the man does not seem concerned about fashion at all. Surprise spreads across her expression when he admits that he rarely goes out for entertainment. The man reluctantly explains his lifestyle. Casual clothing has not been part of his routine for many years. Most of his time outside work was spent climbing mountains alone during his days off. Frustration slowly builds in the girl as she listens. Taking control of the situation, she decides to choose proper clothes for him herself. Determination appears in her expression while she removes the strange outfit from consideration and begins searching the store again. Meanwhile, the man quietly walks through another aisle of the shop. Uncertainty fills his mind as he studies unfamiliar items such as underwear. Questions about daily habits in this new world begin to bother him, leaving him unsure about how many he should buy. While browsing the clothing shop, the girl suddenly calls the man toward the fitting area. She peeks out from behind the curtain and signals for him to come closer. Confusion appears on the man's face as he searches the store for her. Standing outside the fitting curtain, the man waits while the girl explains the situation from inside. She had tried on a dress but encountered a problem with the zipper. Since it was located on the back, she could not close it by herself. After hearing the explanation, the man begins to understand the issue. The zipper has become stuck because a piece of fabric is caught in the mechanism. Sweat appears on his face as he carefully considers how to handle the situation without making things worse. The soft, frilled outfit looks different from her usual clothing, yet she appears somewhat pleased with how it looks. Despite feeling embarrassed, she explains that the dress simply caught her attention while browsing. Kneeling slightly to inspect the zipper more closely, the man gently pulls the fabric away from the metal teeth. The stuck material loosens quickly, allowing the zipper to move again. Relief spreads across both of them as the problem is solved without further trouble. After fixing the zipper, the man carefully examines the dress the girl is wearing. He studies the fabric and stitching near the hem, checking whether the clothing might come loose during movement. Curiosity appears on his face as he inspects the material more closely. While observing the dress from a closer angle, the man accidentally notices more than he expected. The girl quickly senses his gaze and steps forward from the fitting area. Realization spreads across her expression as she understands what he has been looking at. Anger erupts without warning. The girl launches a powerful kick that sends the man flying across the shop floor. His body crashes onto the wooden boards as nearby clothing racks shake from the impact. Moments later, both of them return wearing new outfits suited for adventurers. The girl now wears light armor combined with a skirt and gloves, while the man stands in practical travel clothing with protective gear. Their appearance finally matches the role they plan to take in this world. With their new gear chosen, another thought crosses the man's mind. Instead of discarding their previous clothes, he suggests selling them to the shop owner for a small amount of silver coins. After discussing the idea of selling their old clothes, the man continues joking about it in an inappropriate way. The girl immediately grows irritated by his behavior. Annoyance appears clearly on her face as she listens to his careless remarks. Later, the two leave the shop and head toward a nearby inn. The building appears lively, filled with travelers enjoying meals and drinks. Plates of food are placed on the tables while guests chat throughout the room. While eating, the man pulls out a guidebook they received earlier. According to the information written inside, the inn is a reliable place for visitors to stay. The girl considers the suggestion and begins thinking that the location could serve as their temporary base while they continue exploring the area. During the meal, the conversation shifts toward the strange skill that activated earlier during their fight. The girl recalls the moment when the ability suddenly took effect. She then explains how the skill works. One ability allows a person to avoid a fatal attack, while another grants a chance to instantly defeat an enemy when used together. The two abilities strengthen each other, greatly increasing both survival and attack potential. While sitting in the inn, the man reflects on the powerful abilities they discussed earlier. The idea of such overwhelming skills still troubles him. Even though the girl managed to defeat the goblins during their earlier fight, he believes the situation could have turned dangerous without assistance. Concern slowly replaces his earlier thoughts. The man struggles to organize what he wants to say, scratching his head while searching for the right words. The girl quietly watches him while continuing her meal, curious about what is bothering him. Before he can finish explaining, several adventurers suddenly approach their table. A confident young man wearing light armor stands at the front, accompanied by two companions behind him. His presence immediately draws attention as he introduces himself as the leader of the Windblade party. The group explains that they have just finished their meal and noticed the pair nearby. After briefly observing them, the leader makes an unexpected suggestion. With calm confidence, he offers them a chance to join his adventuring party. Surprise spreads across the table. The girl looks confused by the sudden invitation, while the man reacts with hesitation. From his perspective, they are still inexperienced newcomers trying to understand this unfamiliar world. After offering the invitation, the leader of the Windblade party calmly leaves the decision to them. Confidence remains on his face as he remarks that defeating a group of goblins with only 2 people is impressive. He believes they have strong potential and encourages them to consider the offer carefully before responding. The girl becomes excited by the opportunity. She imagines the benefits of joining an experienced adventuring party and believes the chance is remarkable. Meanwhile, the man continues eating quietly, showing little enthusiasm toward the proposal. She begins explaining why the offer sounds valuable. By joining a party, they could gain experience, defeat stronger monsters, and adapt to the world much faster. However, the man calmly rejects the suggestion. Learning new things would be helpful, but he draws a clear line regarding everything else. His expression remains serious as he carefully considers the risks of moving too quickly in an unfamiliar world. He then explains his reasoning. Earlier that day, the battle against the goblins nearly cost him his life. The memory of facing real danger still lingers in his mind because of that experience. He decides it would be better to move slowly. Fear is clearly visible in his expression, as he admits that fighting monsters terrifies him. Sitting across from him, the girl remains quiet while listening. Although the Windblade party is considered a capable group of adventurers, the man still cannot ignore the anxiety that comes from facing life or death battles. His words leave the girl frustrated. She struggles to understand why he refuses an opportunity that seems safe and beneficial. In response, the man calmly explains that relying on another group's strength is not the answer. Survival in this world, according to him, requires building one's own abilities first. She questions why he speaks as if they are strangers. The man reminds her that even before arriving in this world, their relationship was distant. They had lived separate lives and barely knew each other. She becomes unsettled by his blunt honesty. While drinking from his mug, the man continues speaking in a calm tone, suggesting that she might have disliked him in their previous world. Silence fills the table after his words. Soon afterward, the man stands up and prepares to leave. Without lingering, he announces that he will begin gathering herbs the next day, before wishing her good night. Mizuki lies across the bed inside the quiet inn room, resting with his arms behind his head while staring at the ceiling. Silence fills the space, yet his thoughts remain unsettled. Earlier that day, he watched Mizuki smiling warmly while talking with another man. The memory returns repeatedly in his mind. Her bright expression and the relaxed atmosphere between them left a strong impression on him. Soon the memory focuses on the man confidently suggesting that Mizuki join the Windblades. Determination could be seen in the man's expression while presenting the idea. Mizuki listened with curiosity and interest. Observing the interaction from a distance made Mizuki feel uneasy, as if the gap between him and Mizuki had quietly widened. Gradually, Mizuki's thoughts drift into speculation. In his imagination, Mizuki eventually accepts the invitation and starts spending more time with the wind blades. Time passes in this imagined future, and their bond grows stronger. His imagination pushes the scene even further. The man eventually confesses his feelings to Mizuki and Mizuki's thoughts. Surprise appears on her face, followed by hesitation. After a moment she accepts the confession. The vision becomes unbearable for Mizuki. Frustration rises as he tries desperately to force the imagined scene out of his mind. Mizuki sits quietly on the edge of the bed inside the small inn-room. His head lowers while he reflects on his own thoughts from earlier. After thinking about Mizuki and the wind blades, he finally realizes the reason behind his reaction. Refusing the invitation was not truly about concern or logic. While sitting on the bed, he admits to himself that his emotions have become twisted. Despite understanding the truth, he also recognizes the one person who remains completely honest in his life. Morning arrives in the quiet town as Mizuki steps outside the inn. Fresh air fills the street while villagers begin their daily routines. Near a water pump, he washes his face and tries to clear the lingering thoughts from the night before. Soon after, Mizuki encounters Mizuki standing nearby. She approaches him with a calm expression and shares her decision. Mizuki has chosen to join the wind blades and plans to head into the dungeon starting today. Mizuki listens while quietly wiping his face. The conversation ends quickly. Mizuki begins to walk away, leaving Mizuki standing behind her. Without hesitation, he reminds her that everyone is waiting and that it is time to move forward. The young woman looked at the man with a calm smile while standing in the quiet room. She understood his unusual situation and quietly advised him to keep his abilities and his origin from another world a secret. The man listened carefully and accepted her warning. He realized that revealing too much about himself could cause trouble in this unfamiliar world. Later, the man traveled into a forest to gather herbs. He searched through the grass and carefully pulled plants from the ground. The work was harder than he expected, and sweat formed on his face as he continued collecting the herbs. Even though he used to work at a desk in his previous life, he tried to endure the physical labor. While resting, he suddenly noticed a strange shape moving in the grass. A soft, round creature slowly appeared before him. Its body wobbled quietly on the ground. The man stepped back in surprise as he recognized the creature. Understanding that the creature was a slime monster, he quickly drew his sword and prepared to attack. He raised the sword high and struck the slime with full force, cutting into its soft body as the fight began. His breathing was still heavy after the recent fight. Using a one-handed sword felt awkward for him because his arm strength was not strong enough yet. Sweat rolled down his face as he tried to steady himself. Nearby, something small moved through the grass. A round object slowly rolled forward and stopped in front of him. Excitement quickly replaced his exhaustion once he understood what the object was. The shining sphere was a magic seed, a rare item that monsters sometimes dropped. Energy returned to his body as he raised his sword again with renewed motivation. At that moment, several slimes appeared in the grass ahead of him. Without hesitation, he rushed forward and swung his sword at the approaching slime. The blade cut through the soft body, causing the creature to burst apart. After the attack, another small drop appeared among the scattered slime remains. By the time the sun began lowering behind the trees, the man had defeated 15 slimes. Careful counting showed that he had collected 12 magic seeds from the battles. Later, he returned to the Adventurers Guild and handed the gathered herbs to the receptionist. The clerk checked the items, praised his effort, and exchanged his reward for silver coins. Inside the Adventurers Guild, the man placed several small spheres on the counter. The receptionist leaned closer and carefully examined them. Through her glasses, she quickly recognized the items and explained their origin. According to her knowledge, the blue light inside the seeds was connected to slime monsters. Absorbing a magic seed into the body could slowly improve a person's health. Hearing this information made the man think more seriously about the items he had gathered during the hunt. She then explained that the seeds were also valuable in trade. Selling them to ordinary merchants could bring a large amount of money. The man carefully considered the possibility of exchanging them, realizing that the items might be worth far more than he expected. After doing some quick calculations, he understood their real value. A single large gold coin was equal to many smaller silver coins. The thought of such profit surprised him, and he began to understand how useful his slime hunting had been. The receptionist then leaned closer and suggested a private arrangement. If he secretly shared one gold coin from the sale, she would introduce him to a trustworthy merchant who could handle the trade properly. She confirmed the plan and then mentioned the name of a merchant who could handle the rare items. While thinking for a moment, she recalled a girl who had visited the guild the day before. Not long after, he arrived at a shop in town with a sign reading Matteo and Company. A middle-aged merchant stood near the entrance and studied the visitor carefully. The man's face was unfamiliar to him, and the merchant showed some suspicion at first. Even so, the merchant remained calm while observing the newcomer. The man quickly explained that the Adventurers Guild reception had referred him to this place. Hearing that information, the merchant's attitude relaxed slightly. He then invited the visitor to step into a private room at the back of the shop where they could talk more comfortably. Inside the quiet room, the two men sat across from each other. The man explained that he had only arrived in the town the previous day and was still learning about the place. While listening, the merchant carefully studied him and soon recognized the adventurer's reputation. He had already heard that this newcomer had taken down a group of goblins, despite being only an F-rank adventurer. Inside the private room, the merchant examined the items placed on the table. His eyes focused on the small shining seeds as he reached forward to inspect them. The man pointed toward the seeds and stated his intention clearly. He wanted to exchange them immediately. After observing the seeds closely, the merchant revealed their value. Both of the items were slime magic seeds, and their quality appeared to be good. According to his estimate, the two seeds together were worth around 30 gold coins. While holding a small bag in his hand, the merchant asked another question. He wondered what kind of person the adventurer was searching for. The man then brought up a different topic. He asked whether the merchant guild had any involvement with slave trading. The merchant shook his head and explained that such matters were outside the guild's authority. Slaves were usually sold by specialized traders or through auctions. Recently, a young female warrior had been placed for sale during one of these auctions. The information caught the man's full attention. The merchant explained that the warrior had been priced at 100 gold coins. The amount sounded extremely expensive, yet the man still listened carefully while imagining the situation. He described the mark carved into a slave's arm, a symbol that allowed the owner to control them. Through this mark, commands could be given or pain could be inflicted if the slave disobeyed. Hearing the explanation made Mizuki understand how strict the control over slaves truly was. After leaving the merchant's shop, Mizuki walked through the streets while thinking about everything he had heard. The merchant's words remained in his mind, especially the part about a caravan that had recently arrived in town selling dog-eared slaves. Later that day, Mizuki entered a small cafe at one of the tables. A young woman with long hair sat alone while holding a drink. The place was calm and quiet. When Mizuki approached with a tray, he noticed her sitting by herself and asked if she was alone. Both of them soon sat across from each other. Mizuki drank from his cup while listening. The girl asked about his recent dungeon exploration, but the conversation quickly turned serious. She told Mizuki it was an apology for what happened before, and asked him to check what was inside. Mizuki slowly opened the small bag while making sure no one around the cafe could see inside. As the cloth loosened, several objects appeared, along with a strange, soft-looking item placed among them. The unexpected sight made Mizuki freeze for a moment. Her face turned red as she tried to explain herself. She suggested that they forget the strange incident from earlier and try to get along from now on. Meanwhile, Mizuki began talking excitedly about the future. Soon after, Mizuki examined the small item she had given him. It was a simple charm tied with a string. The girl explained that it was a gift made using the magic seed he had obtained earlier. Although she had read about charms like this in a book, she admitted she was not completely sure whether it would truly work. The idea that the charm resembled something a woman might give to a warrior before battle made the moment even more awkward. The girl immediately became embarrassed and shouted in frustration at his exaggerated reaction. After the sudden outburst, Mizuki declared dramatically that he would never return the charm. His loud determination only made the girl blush even more while she quietly looked away. Her face was slightly red as she studied him carefully. The sight confused her because he appeared calm while drinking alcohol. She began thinking about his situation and wondered if someone like him should really be doing that. Mizuki soon noticed her unusual reaction. Her face remained red and her attitude seemed different from before. He leaned slightly forward across the table and tried to understand what was troubling her. The quiet atmosphere grew heavier as Mizuki gently pressed for an answer. Finally, the girl revealed the reason behind her mood. Earlier that day, something serious had happened. As she rested her head on the table, she revealed that someone important to her had died. Late at night, inside the quiet tavern, Mash stands beside a table while the young woman sits with her head lowered. The atmosphere in the room feels heavy. She struggles to process painful news about someone she knew. Mash remains standing, unsure how to respond to the situation. While watching her reaction, Mash recalls a disturbing scene he witnessed earlier. In that memory, a slave is being dragged away by another person. The image reminds him how cruel this world can be. People with power often control the lives of the weak. After some time, Mash sits down and begins eating while speaking with the young woman. He explains that this world often brings tragedy without clear reasons. Even so, he tries to encourage her not to let the sadness stay in her heart forever. She listens silently while considering his words. Drinks are eventually served at the table. The woman watches carefully as Mash takes a cup. The amount he drinks remains small, and the conversation gradually becomes calmer. As the night continues, the two sit together in the tavern. The woman prepares to leave while reminding him that drinking should only be for enjoyment. Mash quietly thanks her before the evening finally comes to an end. The quiet space gives him time to think about everything that happened earlier. News about someone he knew, dying, continues to weigh on his mind. Despite the heavy feeling, he tries to distract himself. Holding a small bag in his hand, he considers trying something he had been thinking about for a while. Standing in the middle of the room, Mash suddenly activates a special skill. A bright burst of energy fills the air as he calls for the goddess. Light spreads across the room, and a magical circle forms beneath him. She looks around the room, confused about why she was called. Mash, still surprised by the success of the summoning, begins explaining the situation. After calming down, Mash shows the goddess a strange device from his world. He explains that the interface is difficult to read and asks if it can be improved. The goddess listens while examining the device. She reacts with mild curiosity but refuses to change certain parts that involve her appearance. Physical differences such as changes in hair color are explained as natural adaptations to the new environment. Mash listens carefully, slowly beginning to understand how this unfamiliar world affects people who arrive from another place. Mash reacts with shock after hearing the goddess explain the blessing she placed on him. In his mind, the power feels more like a curse than a gift. The goddess calmly clarifies that the blessing reflects Mizuki's ideal image based on Mash's thoughts. While sitting calmly in the room, the goddess continues describing the blessing's effect. Her advice is for Mash to think carefully about how Mizuki might change because of his ideals. Standing nearby, Mash listens with mixed feelings and growing confusion. Doubt soon appears on Mash's face as he struggles to accept the explanation. The goddess decides to provide clear proof instead of continuing the discussion. Suddenly, Mash notices a small but obvious change. Surprise spreads across his expression when he realizes that something has grown slightly larger. Panic quickly takes over as Mash understands what he noticed. Embarrassment forces him to turn away while trying not to look again. Apologies follow as he struggles to control the awkward situation. Curiosity leads the goddess to ask if there are any other questions. Mash remains flustered and reminds her that certain things should stay secret. The room fills with awkward tension as both of them realize how strange the situation has become. Mash leans forward against the bed while speaking with the goddess. He insists that he has not been drinking alcohol, yet something about his condition feels strange. The goddess calmly questions him and suggests that his head may feel slightly fuzzy. A vague memory begins to surface in Mash's mind. He feels certain that there was something important he wanted to ask, yet the thought slips away before he can remember it clearly. Meanwhile, his attention keeps drifting toward the goddess sitting in front of him. The strange feeling inside Mash suddenly grows stronger. Without thinking, he moves closer and reaches forward. The goddess reacts with surprise as his hands press against her chest. Mash freezes for a moment as he realizes what he has done. Instead of stopping immediately, Mash tries to justify his actions in a confused state of mind. He convinces himself that touching the goddess might not matter because the person he truly loves is not even in this world. Reality finally returns to Mash as the tension breaks. The goddess looks down at him with concern, noticing that he clearly is not thinking clearly. Overwhelmed by embarrassment and panic, Mash loses control and collapses backward onto the floor, laughing helplessly at the disastrous situation. Mash lies on the floor while the goddess leans over him. His mind begins to clear as fragments of memory return. He recalls an important fact about his mission. The demon king he was supposed to defeat had already been defeated 100 years earlier. The realization shocks him. Exhaustion soon overwhelms both of them. The goddess grows quiet as her strength fades. Her voice becomes faint while her awareness slowly disappears. Mash's senses also begin to dull. The room becomes silent as the goddess finally loses consciousness. Time passes before Mash begins to wake again. He slowly regains awareness and lifts his head. His body feels heavy as he sits up beside the bed. Confusion remains as he tries to understand whether the strange events earlier were real or simply a dream. After standing up, Mash looks around the quiet room. A nearby building sign confirms the location of the inn. While examining his hand, he discovers an unfamiliar piece of clothing resting in his palm. Mizuki walks slowly through the forest, searching the tall grass for slimes. The area feels strangely quiet compared to the previous day. He bends forward slightly while scanning the ground between the trees. His back aches from walking for hours, and he pauses for a moment to stretch. Yesterday the forest was full of slimes, but today not a single one appears. It is only the second day of gathering medicinal herbs. The forest looks calm, and the usual monsters are nowhere to be seen. The magic seed he harvested earlier seems to have affected the area, leaving the forest strangely empty, with nothing left to hunt or collect. Mizuki decides that staying longer will not change anything. He begins heading back toward town. Gathering herbs quietly by himself feels harder than he expected. The work is slow and repetitive, and the silence of the forest makes the task feel longer. As he continues walking, Mizuki thinks about loneliness in this world. Even though he once worked alone in his previous life, the isolation here feels different. When he returns to town, Mizuki realizes he needs new companions. Standing near the road, he decides to join the Windblades and begin a new chapter of his life. Mizuki arrives at the edge of a large tent set up outside the town. Several covered wagons stand nearby, forming a small caravan camp. He stops and studies the place carefully. Earlier he heard a rumor that a caravan had arrived a few days ago, and that they were selling a dog-eared slave. While approaching the wagons, Mizuki reflects on his situation. He has no special skills, and very little experience in this world. Because of that, finding reliable companions is difficult. Buying a slave is not something he truly supports, yet he understands it might be the fastest way for someone like him to gain a partner. Reaching the entrance, Mizuki notices how silent the area feels. No guards stand nearby, and no merchants move around the camp. He bends slightly and looks toward the opening of the tent, wondering if anyone is inside. Carefully, he steps closer and peeks around the edge of the entrance. His eyes narrow as he searches the dim interior, unsure of what he might find. Inside the cage lies a dog-eared girl, collapsed on the floor. Her body is covered with injuries and dirt, and the sight shocks Mizuki immediately. Two heavy exclamation marks burst through his thoughts as he realizes the terrible condition she is in. Shock spreads across Mizuki's face as he looks closer at the girl. Inside the cage, her dog-like ears confirm the rumor he heard earlier. Dirt and bruises cover her body, and a strange mark is visible on her skin. Before Mizuki can examine her further, a large bald man suddenly appears behind him. The man speaks with a rough attitude and blocks Mizuki's view of the cage. When Mizuki asks about the girl, the man dismisses the question and tells him that slaves for sale are inside the main tent. The man explains the situation bluntly. When he purchased slaves in another town, the dog-eared girl came along as an unwanted extra. To him, she is nothing more than a troublesome burden that was forced on him as part of a deal. According to the merchant, the girl carries a curse and cannot be sold. Her body is already weak, and he believes she will die soon anyway. Mizuki quietly studies the girl again. Her breathing is faint, and her body barely moves. While the merchant turns away and begins walking toward the tent, Mizuki makes a decision. He calls out calmly and asks how much the dog-eared girl costs. The unexpected request immediately stops the merchant in his tracks. The merchant studies him for a moment before naming a price of 100 gold coins. Confusion crosses the man's face as he wonders why Mizuki would want such a slave. Mizuki stands quietly, showing little reaction while considering the offer. Unfortunately, Mizuki does not carry that much money. He explains that he cannot pay the full amount. The merchant lowers the price little by little, treating the situation casually while the injured girl remains motionless inside the cage. The bargaining continues until the price drops significantly. Mizuki then reveals another option. Instead of gold, he offers several magic seeds he gathered earlier. The merchant examines the glowing seeds carefully. Their magical quality quickly catches his attention, and he realizes the offer may be more valuable than coins. After thinking for a moment, the merchant accepts the deal. He agrees to sell the girl to Mizuki, and mentions that the slave mark must be erased before she can become a commoner. Mizuki calmly agrees to the conditions without hesitation. Soon after the exchange, Mizuki lifts the weak dog-eared girl into his arms. Her body remains light and fragile as she rests against him. Walking slowly along the quiet road, he realizes that he purchased her almost without thinking, but the decision has already been made. While Mizuki carries the injured dog-eared girl through the road outside the camp, A heavily armored dwarf suddenly appears and blocks his path. The dwarf's sharp eyes reveal that he witnessed everything that happened earlier. Mizuki pauses carefully, holding the unconscious girl while the dwarf studies the situation with a serious expression. He answers that he intends to bring the girl to an inn as quickly as possible. However, the dwarf immediately warns him that no human-only inn would accept someone carrying a dog-eared slave. The situation in the town is strict, and non-human races are treated with heavy discrimination. Seeing Mizuki's urgency, the dwarf offers better advice. Instead of the inn, he suggests going to the church first, where proper treatment for wounds can be provided. The dwarf hands Mizuki a long cloth and instructs him to wrap it around the girl's arm. The cloth must cover the slave mark so that people will assume Mizuki is the master and avoid unnecessary attention. Understanding the risk, Mizuki quietly follows the instructions while holding the fragile girl. Soon the tall church building comes into view. As they approach, Mizuki finally asks the dwarf's name. The bearded traveler introduces himself as Aiden, a passing dwarf who simply happened to witness the scene. Inside the church, Mizuki and Aiden bring the injured dog-eared girl to a priestess. The young woman quickly recognizes the situation and approaches the bed where the girl lies unconscious. She greets Aiden politely and introduces herself as Mikra, the sister of Ayla from the Windblades. Mikra raises her hand and begins using healing magic. Soft light spreads over the girl's weak body, slowly restoring some of her lost strength. The curse affecting her cannot be removed yet, but Mikra manages to stabilize her condition for the moment. The girl's breathing becomes steadier as the magic takes effect. Removing the curse completely would require a miracle from a priest with far greater divine power. Ordinary healing alone cannot erase such a powerful mark. The conversation shifts toward the difficulty of receiving that kind of help. Aiden quietly explains that the local priest does not favor non-human races. Because of that prejudice, asking for such assistance in this town would likely be impossible. Hearing this, Mizuki realizes the situation will not be simple. The only realistic option for now is to treat the girl's wounds and survive the present moment. Aiden then mentions that a church in another city, Megluth to the east, might offer better hope. Mizuki listens as Mikra explains that there is no fixed donation for the church's help. The decision depends entirely on the priest's mood. If the priest refuses once, there may not be another chance to ask again. Understanding the risk, Mizuki quietly places several magic seeds in his hand and offers them as a contribution. Seeing the offering, Mikra accepts the responsibility of negotiating with the priest. She believes the generous donation may persuade the church to perform a greater miracle. Later, Mizuki carries the recovering girl outside. Her condition has improved, and some color has returned to her face. Night falls as Mizuki brings the girl to an inn. Inside the small room, he realizes there is only one bed available. Carefully, he lays the girl down so she can continue resting while he watches over her. Her breathing remains calm as she sleeps deeply. Mizuki kneels beside the bed and studies her peaceful expression. The priestess had said the girl would not wake until morning, giving him time to rest. Eventually, Mizuki lies down beside her, planning the next day. He intends to take the girl along while gathering medicinal herbs. With luck, the two of them might slowly build a working partnership from this unexpected meeting. Morning light filled the quiet room as Mizuki slowly opened his eyes. For a moment he remained still, trying to understand where he was. Strength gradually returned to his body, allowing him to sit up on the bed. Not far from him, a young beast girl knelt on the floor with her hands together. The beast girl stepped forward and introduced herself as Fam. Standing politely near the bed, she seemed slightly nervous but calm. Mizuki remained seated while observing her carefully. Fam explained that she had been taking care of him and had noticed that his energy had returned. After a moment, Fam reached toward Mizuki's arm and began removing the bandage wrapped around it. Her intention was to check the condition of his injury. Before she could finish, Mizuki quickly stopped her hand. Concern weighed on Mizuki as he rubbed the back of his neck. The truth about Fam's illness could not be hidden. According to what he understood, the sickness had not been completely cured and would return again after several years. Silence filled the room while Fam lowered her gaze and listened carefully. Mizuki continued explaining his past, revealing that he had once been unable to receive proper treatment. Because of that condition, he had spent nearly 4 years bedridden. Morning began quietly, as Fam looked outside with a calm expression. The fresh air and peaceful atmosphere made the morning feel refreshing to her. A moment later, her mood suddenly changed. Confusion and embarrassment appeared on her face as she realized something strange. Fam turned toward Mizuki and explained her situation with visible distress. For a long time, she had been isolated because of her illness, and no one had touched her before. Her voice trembled as she tried to explain why she believed something had happened. Despite Mizuki's explanation, Fam remained unconvinced. She insisted that she had checked carefully, and believed her conclusion was correct. Hearing this made Mizuki panic even more. He tried to explain that he had only squeezed her chest earlier, and nothing beyond that. Shock and frustration overwhelmed Mizuki as the misunderstanding grew worse. He grabbed his head in disbelief, while wondering if something had happened without him realizing it. The situation felt completely absurd, yet Fam continued looking embarrassed and confused. The tension in the room increased as both of them argued over the situation. Fam strongly believed she had been violated, while Mizuki firmly denied any memory of doing such a thing. His frustration showed clearly as he tried to explain that he had no recollection of attacking her. A new realization appeared on her face when she considered another possible explanation. If what she believed had truly happened, the evidence should have been different. That thought made her pause. Turning slightly, she asked Mizuki for help with something awkward. Although embarrassed, she quietly requested that he prepare sanitary products for her. Unfortunately, there were no other spare clothes available in the room. Fam looked at the item while thinking about the situation. Even though it was not ideal, it was the only option for now. After receiving the underwear, Fam hesitated and examined it carefully. The scent surprised her slightly, which made the moment awkward. Mizuki grew frustrated while trying to explain the situation and insisted that she simply use it for now. Despite her reluctance, she realized she had little choice. Later, Fam changed her clothes while Mizuki waited nearby. As the moment passed, a strange question appeared in her mind. Observing the environment around them, she wondered if Mizuki ran a questionable business. Mizuki admitted that he was an adventurer, though not a very strong one. Fam listened carefully before making a request that surprised him. With determination in her eyes, she asked if she could join his party. She expressed her desire to become an adventurer and travel alongside him. The request clearly surprised Mizuki, who looked up at her with confusion. Instead of rejecting the idea immediately, he paused to think about the situation. After a moment, he explained that he was planning to travel alone and handle his struggles by himself. As the conversation continued, Fam spoke about a village located near the border of the Demon King's territory. It was the place where she had once lived. She quietly asked if they could visit that village if their journey ever passed nearby. Mizuki listened carefully before nodding in agreement. The atmosphere between them became lighter after the agreement. Fam smiled brightly, appearing relieved by Mizuki's response, wanting to move forward. Mizuki then spoke about performing a ritual to make her his companion. Mizuki raised his finger and explained the unusual ritual with a straight face. According to him, the process required him to poke Fam's chest with his index finger. The strange explanation instantly shocked Fam. Her face turned red with embarrassment as she reacted to the unexpected statement. Ignoring her reaction, Mizuki continued describing the so-called ritual with exaggerated seriousness. He claimed that if he succeeded, Fam would lift her clothes and show him her chest. He stood in front of Fam with a mischievous expression while explaining the strange game he had mentioned earlier. The challenge was called the nipple target game, and he treated it as a ritual for forming their partnership. Fam listened with an embarrassed face, but she did not step back. With a red face, Fam pointed nervously at the spots Mizuki needed to aim for. Her hands trembled slightly while she tried to guide him. Mizuki then moved his hand forward and attempted the challenge. After the attempt, Mizuki looked satisfied with the strange training. He told Fam that they would continue practicing every day until he succeeded. The idea immediately surprised her. Hearing that the game might continue the next day left her both embarrassed and confused. Later that day, the scene shifted outside near a large building with a tall tower. Mizuki arrived with Fam and met a woman waiting near the entrance. Since Fam had spent many years bedridden because of illness, she had no experience as an adventurer. The woman described a ritual where prayers could grant someone a profession. When asked what path she wished to take, Fam confidently expressed her desire to become a Mibu wolf. Inside the large building, the woman in charge nodded calmly after hearing Fam's decision. She accepted the request and prepared to begin the process that would grant Fam her profession. Mizuki stood nearby while watching the scene carefully. Before allowing the ritual to begin, the woman reminded Mizuki that the temple required a small offering. Mizuki quietly placed a silver coin in her hand, as a sign of respect for the gods. She accepted the coin and gave a short blessing in return. After the ritual finished, Fam stepped outside wearing new adventurer equipment. She carefully moved her foot forward while testing the new boots on the stone ground. The gear fit her well, and the feeling of standing as an adventurer for the first time filled her with excitement. Standing beside her, Mizuki looked satisfied with the result. He explained that now that she had become a Mibu wolf, they could begin working together properly. Since their equipment was still simple, he suggested starting with something manageable. The two of them walked toward the edge of town under the open sky, While moving forward, Mizuki casually mentioned that collecting medicinal herbs was something he was quite good at. Hearing that made Fam look at him with curiosity as their journey together truly began. Fam suddenly stopped and raised her hand, while focusing on the air around her. Her sharp senses quickly picked up a familiar scent. She confidently pointed toward a patch of tall grass and explained that medicinal herbs were nearby. Mizuki followed behind her while observing the surroundings. Moving closer to the spot, Fam crouched down and began gathering the herbs carefully. A large amount of plants grew in the area, and she happily filled her bag with them. Mizuki watched from behind with a satisfied expression. While Fam focused on her work, a sudden presence appeared from the forest shadows. A goblin slowly stepped forward with a wide and disturbing grin. Mizuki noticed the creature immediately and froze for a moment. The danger quickly became clear as the goblin raised its weapon and rushed toward Fam. Mizuki shouted loudly to warn her about the enemy. Hearing the warning, Fam turned around in shock when she realized a goblin was charging directly at her. Goblin swung its weapon toward her without hesitation. Mizuki rushed forward while shouting for her to retreat. Panic filled the moment, but Fam refused to run away. Gripping her sword tightly, she gathered her courage and prepared to fight back, despite having almost no combat experience. Mizuki reacted immediately and dashed toward Fam with urgency. The creature swung its club downward, trying to strike before Mizuki could interfere. Fam stood frozen for a moment as the danger approached. The confrontation ended quickly. Once Mizuki struck back at the goblin, the creature collapsed and faded away after the blow. Nearby, Fam sat on the ground while holding her arm, clearly shaken by the sudden fight. Pain spread through her body, but the injury was not severe. Even though she was injured, Fam refused to stay behind. Tears formed in her eyes as frustration filled her voice. She wanted to fight properly, instead of standing by while Mizuki handled everything. Mizuki listened to her determination, but calmly explained that she should watch the battle for now, while he took the lead. Seeing that Fam was exhausted, Mizuki reached into his hand and revealed a small item. He offered it to her and explained that it would help restore her stamina. The item looked valuable, but he encouraged her to use it so she could recover her strength. Fam hesitated after seeing what Mizuki offered. The item seemed expensive, and she felt uncomfortable accepting something so valuable. Even so, Mizuki reassured her that she did not need to worry about the cost. Mizuki insisted firmly that she stop complaining and just eat it. Startled by his sudden push, she quickly gulped it down. After a moment, the strength slowly returned to her body. A quiet calm returned to the forest, clearing after the fight. Fam sat behind Mizuki and gently leaned closer while apologizing for causing trouble earlier. Mizuki looked ahead calmly and told her it was fine. Both of them rested in the grass for a moment, letting the tension fade while recovering from the unexpected battle. While sitting under the open sky, Mizuki began speaking honestly about his feelings. Watching Fam earlier made him realize something important. In a strange way, he felt relieved after seeing her determination, even though the situation had been dangerous. Memories from the past surfaced in Mizuki's mind. He recalled how he had always been surrounded by strong people, and believed that becoming like them was the only correct path. That pressure had shaped the way he saw the world for a long time. Looking back at Fam, Mizuki slowly realized that his thinking had been wrong. Things had not gone well because he kept forcing himself to meet expectations he could not handle. In his eyes, Fam was the one acting naturally and honestly. The quiet forest gave them time to calm down. Mizuki looked tired and serious while thinking about the fight that had just happened. He admitted to himself that fighting was frightening and far more dangerous than he wanted to admit. After hearing Mizuki's honest feelings, Fam's expression softened. She felt relieved knowing that he had spoken openly instead of hiding his thoughts. A gentle smile appeared on her face while she quietly thanked him. Both of them remained sitting while looking out across the distant hills. Mizuki felt calmer after speaking honestly about his emotions. Sharing those thoughts made the burden on his mind lighter. The moment gave them a brief rest before continuing their journey. As time passed, hunger reminded them it was time to leave. Mizuki stood and decided they should return to town for lunch. Fam followed beside him with a relaxed smile, ready to continue traveling together as partners. A few days after they began gathering medicinal herbs, the girl continued training in the forest. She rushed toward a slime and swung her sword with determination. The blade struck the creature and split it apart. Her movements were still rough, but she showed clear improvement compared to before. After finishing the battle, she proudly showed her progress to Mizuki, the black-haired man who had been guiding her. She revealed that her level had already reached 7. Mizuki observed her calmly from a short distance. While walking through the forest path, Mizuki explained the system of this world. Strength depended on levels that increased after defeating monsters. As levels rose, abilities like health and magic power improved as well. He also explained the 4 attributes of magic: fire, water. To show a practical example, Mizuki used earth magic. Small stones formed and shot forward in a rapid burst. The attack traveled straight through the air with strong force. The girl watched the display with excitement. Mizuki then demonstrated another technique called a slider, a trick meant to distract enemies. However, the stone flew in the wrong direction and struck the girl painfully. She reacted with shock and pain while Mizuki realized his mistake and quickly apologized. Inside the Adventurers Guild, a receptionist with glasses welcomed visitors with a gentle smile. The building was quiet, lined with shelves of records and documents that kept track of quests and adventurers. The receptionist noticed the two approaching the counter and observed the girl standing beside Mizuki. Her presence made it clear that Mizuki now had a new companion traveling with him. After placing their payment on the counter, the pair confirmed their successful task. A moment later, the receptionist happily acknowledged the completed job. The request had been handled smoothly, and the result pleased the guild. Mizuki explained that the reward served as thanks for introducing the girl to Mateo, someone connected to the earlier request. Their cooperation during the task had clearly worked out well. While reviewing another document, the receptionist brought up a new opportunity. A village nearby had been facing trouble with goblins roaming the surrounding fields. Because of this, the guild prepared a request that offered a reward of 1 gold coin to anyone willing to handle the situation. Mizuki studied the details and learned that the village was located far from the city. The journey would require several days of travel, and possibly nights spent camping outside. As the explanation continued, the request involved hunting goblins that had been causing trouble in a nearby village. While thinking about it, he recalled the name of the client. Aiden was not an ordinary adventurer. He was known as a high-ranked fighter with a calm personality and strong reputation. Standing beside him, his companion listened while Mizuki reflected on their situation. Their current strength was still limited, and the idea of facing goblins worried him. Even though he wanted to gain experience, he also understood the danger of taking risks too early. Rather than turning the request down, she suggested accepting the job. From her perspective, the quest might still be manageable for them. Her calm tone showed confidence that the task would not be impossible. After a moment of thought, Mizuki made his decision. He agreed to accept the quest, despite his concerns. The girl immediately showed her trust, choosing to follow whatever path he decided. With the document in hand, Mizuki prepared himself to face whatever challenges awaited them. As they stood in the guild hall, another group of adventurers suddenly appeared. Among them was a young man in armor with a composed expression. The presence of this figure caught Mizuki's attention immediately. The name associated with him surfaced in Mizuki's thoughts: Aiden. Later that day, Mizuki and his companion arrived at a different inn after leaving their previous lodging due to some trouble. Inside the building, they unexpectedly encountered a familiar woman who seemed surprised to see them there. The bandages made her suspicious, and she began to question what had happened. Before the situation could become complicated, Mizuki calmly explained the truth. He stated that the girl with him had been purchased as a slave. The sudden explanation caused visible shock from those nearby. Another adventurer nearby reacted strongly, criticizing Mizuki for referring to the girl as a slave. Several people in the room turned their attention toward the conversation. Among them were members of another party who silently observed the situation while seated at a table. She lowered her head and offered an apology, trying to calm the growing tension. She explained that the girl had been brought here by someone named Beers. Hearing that name triggered a serious reaction from Mizuki. Memories of the past surfaced in his mind. If his recollection was correct, Beers had once owned another slave before. The realization left Mizuki deeply uneasy as he began to understand the darker history behind the situation. Inside the inn, tension slowly faded as the armored adventurer introduced himself. Confidence surrounded him, yet his attitude remained calm. Nearby, the woman who had apologized earlier explained her thoughts about traveling alone. Exploring dangerous lands without support was difficult, so gaining a companion often became necessary for survival. Later, in a quieter place, conversation shifted between Mizuki and his companion. Curiosity filled the girl's voice as she tried to understand the earlier confrontation. Mention of a confident and strong person from Mizuki's past raised even more questions in her mind. Instead of avoiding the topic, she pressed further, wanting to learn more about the person he once mentioned. Confusion appeared on her face as she tried to explain her own earlier behavior. Something about the encounter had stirred a reaction she could not properly understand. Lying nearby, Mizuki listened while thinking carefully about her words. Another voice suggested keeping the discussion brief, but encouraged honest thoughts instead of silence. Interest in understanding emotions and motivations made the topic difficult to ignore. After reflecting for a moment, Mizuki finally offered an explanation based on simple observation. Sometimes feelings appeared through subtle reactions, rather than clear understanding. Behavior similar to curiosity or attraction could surface unexpectedly. Sitting on the bed, Mizuki listened while the girl tried to understand her own behavior earlier that day. Attention toward him had made her nervous, leaving her unsure how to act. Reflection made the situation feel childish to her, yet the feeling still lingered. Embarrassment quickly followed that realization. Praise from Mizuki about her observation surprised her, and gratitude appeared in her expression. While she thanked him sincerely, the compliment caused him to react awkwardly. Excitement suddenly pushed him to act in a dramatic way. Standing up quickly, he loudly declared that he would repay her kindness through a strange and exaggerated gesture. Shock spread across the room when the action immediately triggered chaos. A flying pan struck him hard, stopping the moment before it could continue. Pain forced him to collapse onto the bed while the girl watched from behind a curtain with wide eyes. Exhaustion replaced the earlier excitement, and the room slowly became quiet again. Night eventually settled in. Both of them lay on the same bed after the long and unusual day. Rest finally came as fatigue overcame their thoughts. With the tension gone, peaceful sleep replaced the earlier confusion and embarrassment. Quiet movement on the bed caught attention when the girl shifted uncomfortably. Concern rose as he checked on her, wondering why she remained awake. Nervous tension appeared in her expression as she tried to explain what she expected might happen that night. Careful words followed as he tried to calm the situation. Gratitude from the girl showed how deeply she appreciated the concern shown toward her health. Worry about her condition had always been present since they first met. Silence lingered briefly before she gathered the courage to continue. Embarrassment mixed with curiosity as she realized how unusual the situation had become. After hesitating for a moment, she asked if she could finally share the truth about her past. Serious expression appeared when he warned that the story might not be pleasant to hear. Slowly, memories from years ago began to surface. Illness had struck her village 4 years earlier, creating fear among the people who lived near the border of the Demon King's territory. Sacrifice soon became part of village tradition. Each time sickness spread, one villager would fall ill as a price. Despite this harsh fate, protection still existed. A guardian deity watched over the settlement, maintaining safety and keeping greater danger away from the people who lived there. Night conversation continued inside the small inn room. Sitting on the bed, the girl explained more about the strange illness connected to her village. Normally, if someone left the village, the sickness would slowly heal after about 5 years. Thoughtful silence followed while Mizuki considered her explanation. A possible solution came to mind. Returning to the village might help uncover the truth behind the illness. The girl quietly agreed, while explaining that her condition had worsened after she left the village. Further details revealed an even darker event. 6 months earlier, the village had been attacked by bandits. The sudden raid destroyed the peaceful life the villagers once had. Shock crossed Mizuki's expression as he heard about the attack. Tears formed in the girl's eyes while painful memories surfaced. During the raid, both of her parents were killed, homes were burned, and the village she once called home was completely destroyed. Determination appeared on Mizuki's face after hearing the story. A firm promise followed, as he declared that he would break the curse affecting her. Once they became stronger, they would travel to the eastern city where a large church might help remove the illness. Morning light slowly entered the inn room. Quiet air surrounded the place while Mizuki rested on the bed, after the long conversation the previous night. Thoughts about the girl's past and the destroyed village lingered in his mind as he slowly woke up. Soon after, the girl greeted him politely. Instead of preparing for travel immediately, she knelt on the floor and closed her eyes in prayer. Curiosity appeared as Mizuki watched the unexpected action. Embarrassment from the previous day returned to the conversation. She admitted touching her own body earlier to avoid making a mistake during preparation, believing it was part of what Mizuki expected. Realizing the misunderstanding, Mizuki quickly apologized and bowed deeply, explaining that he had only been joking before. Awkward silence followed the apology, determined to prevent further confusion. Mizuki clarified that such strange behavior would not continue. Focus now needed to remain on their upcoming quest rather than unnecessary distractions. With the tension easing, preparations for the day began. Mizuki suggested eating breakfast before heading to the meeting place for the mission. The girl reluctantly agreed, while still remembering the earlier embarrassment. Soon, both of them stepped out of the inn, ready to begin the next stage of their journey. A quiet road led Mizuki and his companion fam toward a small village surrounded by wooden houses and fences. Mizuki, a black-haired man who had arrived in this world not long ago, walked steadily while observing the unfamiliar settlement ahead. Near the entrance stood a tall watchtower and a thick wooden gate built for protection. Guarding the passage was a heavily armored man with a large beard and a stern face. His sharp eyes carefully examined the travelers who had just arrived. Recognition soon appeared in the guard's eyes as he focused on Mizuki. After realizing who the visitor was, the guard turned slightly toward them. Mizuki and Fam stepped closer to the gate building, while maintaining a respectful distance. Relief crossed the guard's face after confirming that Mizuki had recovered well. With a respectful gesture, Mizuki presented Fam as his traveling companion. Attention then shifted toward the young beast girl as the guard carefully studied her presence beside Mizuki. Curiosity led the guard to ask about their current abilities and progress as adventurers. Mizuki responded honestly, explaining that his experience was still very limited. Fam, who had only recently begun traveling with him, had even less time in the field. Mizuki explained their recent progress to the guard while standing near the village gate. Their growth had been faster than expected because they spent their days hunting slimes and goblins outside the village. Even so, Mizuki preferred not to reveal every detail about the special skill that helped him improve quickly. Beside him, Fam stood calmly and confirmed her own strength. After hearing their explanation, the guard looked at the two beginners with interest. Their growth had been noticeable in a short period, but he understood that both were still inexperienced. Because of that, the guard decided to help them improve. While discussing the past, the guard mentioned that Mizuki once tried to save a dying beast girl without hesitation. Mizuki responded calmly, explaining that his actions were not driven by simple kindness. Personal reasons had pushed him to act during that moment. Fam listened quietly before revealing her own thoughts. At that time, she had already lost hope and believed her life was near its end. Hearing Mizuki speak that way confused her, since she believed he had truly saved her. The guard smiled slightly as the conversation settled. Both Mizuki and Fam stood together, remembering how their meeting had changed their path. After speaking with the guard, Mizuki admitted that their journey had reached a dead end. Progress as adventurers had slowed, and both he and Fam needed proper guidance. Instead of continuing alone, Mizuki decided to accept the guard's offer of a quest and training. The three soon prepared to leave the village. Group traveled through a forest path while heading toward their target village. Along the way, monsters appeared from the trees and bushes, rather than avoiding them. The trio used these encounters as part of their training. During battle, Fam stepped forward to face the enemies directly. The veteran warrior watched closely while offering advice and instructions. Mizuki remained nearby, observing the fight and giving guidance when needed. One monster suddenly rushed forward and swung a heavy weapon toward her. The attack came quickly, forcing Fam to react under pressure. The warrior shouted firm instructions, reminding her not to panic and to avoid facing the attack head-on. Following the guidance, Fam shifted her body and moved her feet carefully to dodge the strike. Using the momentum of her movement, she prepared her next swing. With both mentors watching closely, Fam continued fighting while steadily improving her combat skills. During the training battle, Fam finally managed to land a clean strike on the monster in front of her. Her punch pushed the creature backward, ending the fight. The victory brought a bright smile to her face as the tension faded from her body. Watching from nearby, Mizuki reacted with clear relief and excitement. After the battle ended, the three rested together on the grass beneath the open sky. The forest around them was quiet again after the short clash. While Mizuki and the warrior sat nearby discussing the training, Fam calmly drank water and recovered her strength. Conversation soon shifted toward Mizuki's own combat ability. The warrior carefully examined his posture and weapon before sharing an honest observation. According to him, Mizuki's current weapon was limiting his performance. Mizuki then explained that he had practiced a form of sword training during childhood. His experience came from using simple bamboo practice swords, rather than real weapons. Because of that background, his body had developed habits that did not perfectly match his current fighting style. The warrior analyzed Mizuki's stance more closely and explained the problem. Mizuki's foot placement and balance were creating awkward movements during combat. Unless those habits were corrected, stepping forward and attacking smoothly would remain difficult for him. While resting beneath the trees, the discussion returned to Mizuki's unusual sword training from childhood. The veteran warrior wondered what kind of weapon Mizuki had imagined while practicing with bundles of bamboo. Mizuki calmly revealed the answer. Hearing this, the bearded warrior used a special ability and opened a magical storage space. From within it, he carefully pulled out a long curved blade. Mizuki stared in surprise as the weapon appeared before him. He explained that he had recreated the blade after studying its design. According to him, a hero had once used a similar weapon 100 years earlier when defeating the Demon King. Because of that history, the warrior believed the sword would suit Mizuki, while another pair of smaller blades was then presented for Fam. Mizuki accepted the katana with gratitude, while the warrior calmly explained that the extra weapons were meant for Fam's fighting style. With their new weapons ready, the group prepared to continue their journey. Before leaving, the warrior reminded Pham to train carefully and not rush her attacks. Holding her blades confidently, Pham responded with enthusiasm as they set out again. Later that day, Mizuki moved quietly through the forest while searching the tall grass for small animals. The forest had grown darker as evening approached, and the sounds of wildlife surrounded him. Sweat ran down his face as he focused on the movement in the bushes. Mizuki raised his hand and released a burst of magic. The attack struck the small animal instantly, ending the hunt in a single moment. The creature collapsed on the ground, leaving Mizuki with fresh food for the group's dinner. Meanwhile, Pham and the veteran warrior stood near several ancient pillars rising from the forest floor. The tall structures formed a mysterious area that the warrior explained was protected by a barrier. When Mizuki returned, he carried the animal he had caught. Pham looked surprised as he presented the food for their meal. The warrior sat near the fire while Pham reacted with excitement at the sight of their dinner. As the fire grew stronger, the warrior began organizing the evening preparations. A nearby water source would allow them to use magic to prepare their meal properly. With the campsite ready, the group settled down to cook and relax before continuing their journey the next day. He listened carefully and began experimenting with his water magic. By focusing his thoughts, he gathered water together and formed it into a floating sphere in front of his hands. The result surprised him, since he had only considered simple uses for magic before. Seeing the water sphere, Mizuki suggested a practical use for it. If the sphere were made larger, it could be used for washing. He demonstrated by placing his hand inside the floating water, showing how it could clean dirt easily. Pham leaned forward and placed her head inside the sphere of water. The floating magic gently washed through her hair while she laughed with excitement. The warrior watched the experiment and pointed out that the water could simply return to the sphere afterward, removing the need for towels. When Pham lifted her head from the sphere, she quickly checked herself in surprise. Her hair had been washed, yet the rest of her body remained completely dry. The unusual result made her even more excited as she realized how useful the magic could be. With the short experiment finished, the group prepared to continue their journey. Pham happily suggested washing again later, while the three travelers walked away from the pillars and deeper into the forest path ahead. As the group continued through the forest, the veteran warrior suddenly slowed his steps and warned the others to stay alert. According to him, wolves often appeared in that region. The trees grew thicker around them, and the atmosphere became tense. During their walk, Mizuki brought up another topic related to their recent expedition. He asked what should be done with the share of mana seeds they had obtained earlier. The warrior thought for a moment before recalling something unusual about Mizuki. Throughout their travels, Mizuki always seemed to carry a large number of mana seeds. This detail made the warrior curious, so he questioned Mizuki about it. In response, Mizuki began explaining the reason behind it. He mentioned the existence of special abilities known as Heaven's Blessings, rare skills granted to certain individuals. His own ability allowed him to collect more rare items during adventures. After hearing the explanation, the warrior understood the situation clearly. Mizuki's special skill increased the chance of rare item drops for every member of the party. Realizing this, the warrior recognized why the group had been gathering so many mana seeds during their journey together. While the group continued walking through the forest, the veteran warrior suddenly raised his hand and told everyone to stop talking. His sharp eyes focused on the surroundings as he sensed danger nearby. Mizuki and Pham immediately became alert, realizing something was approaching through the trees. Moments later, several wolves stepped out from the shadows of the forest. Their eyes glowed with hostility as they slowly surrounded the travelers. The pack moved together with clear coordination, showing that they were experienced hunters. The wolves attacked without hesitation. One beast suddenly leaped forward toward Mizuki. Reacting quickly, Mizuki threw small stones to interrupt the attack and create an opening. At the same time, Pham rushed forward to engage the pack directly. However, the fight was chaotic, and multiple wolves continued moving around them. She quickly realized that the battlefield was more complicated than fighting a single enemy. As Pham focused on the wolf in front of her, another one suddenly lunged from the side. The veteran warrior immediately shouted a warning, reminding her to watch her allies' movements as well. During the chaotic battle, one wolf suddenly lunged toward Mizuki from the front. The attack came faster than he expected. Mizuki raised his weapon quickly, trying to block the incoming strike. Before the wolf could land a decisive hit, the veteran warrior fired an arrow that struck the creature and forced it away. At the same time, the battlefield quickly split into two fronts. Mizuki rushed to handle the wolves on one side, while Pham moved toward the other group. Once the immediate danger passed, the warrior called them back and pointed out their mistake. During the fight, both Mizuki and Pham had focused too much on individual targets. Because of that, they had nearly lost awareness of the overall situation. The warrior explained that wolves fought as a coordinated pack. In comparison, Mizuki and Fam were still acting separately rather than as a team. To survive against enemies like this, they needed to pay closer attention to each other's positions and movements. After hearing the lesson, Mizuki looked toward Fam and questioned her actions during the fight. She had rushed forward alone instead of staying close to him. Understanding the danger of that choice, the two realized they needed better coordination before facing another battle. She looked at him with uncertainty, wondering if her actions during the fight had caused trouble for him. Mizuki avoided answering directly and turned his gaze away. Soon after, Mizuki tried to explain the situation more calmly. Fighting a single enemy would not be difficult, but facing multiple monsters required coordination and teamwork. Fam listened while lowering her head slightly, realizing that her decision to rush forward alone had created problems during the fight. Watching the situation, the veteran warrior finally made a decision. Believing the group was not ready to continue the mission, he chose to withdraw from the quest. The party would return to town and reconsider their next steps before attempting another dangerous journey. A narrow trail cut through the tall grass as Mizuki walked at the front of the group. His posture remained alert while guiding the others along the quiet path. Behind him, Fam and the young boy followed carefully, watching the surroundings as they moved forward. While walking, Mizuki noticed that Fam seemed troubled. Her expression carried hesitation, as if she was struggling with a decision. A question remained in her mind about whether she should reveal her thoughts or keep them hidden. Soon after, Fam gathered the courage to explain her feelings. According to her, Mizuki was the only person who had truly noticed her existence. Life in the town had once been lonely, despite being surrounded by many people. Hearing those words caused Mizuki to pause. Only 3 days had passed since they first met, yet Fam's determination already ran deep. Such devotion in such a short time made him question her reasoning. After reflecting for a moment, Mizuki gently placed his hand on Fam's head. The quiet gesture showed acceptance rather than rejection. Tears slowly formed in Fam's eyes as relief washed over her. Standing beside her, Mizuki remained composed while silently acknowledging the connection that had begun to form between them. The group stopped along the forest road to discuss their next task. Mizuki explained the plan for the upcoming quest while facing Fam and the older warrior, Aiden. In battle, Fam would take the role of the main fighter, while Mizuki would remain behind her and provide support when needed. After outlining the plan, Mizuki turned his attention to Aiden. He asked the older man to speak up if he noticed any problems with the arrangement. Aiden studied Mizuki with a serious look before giving a calm response that he did not object. Later, the group rested beneath a large tree after walking for some time. The long journey through the forest had drained their energy more than expected. Mizuki sat quietly while Aiden mentioned that proper rest was important during an expedition. During the break, Aiden spoke about the nature of dog-eared people. According to him, their race was known for deep loyalty toward the master they chose to follow. Hearing this explanation made Mizuki realize that Fam's devotion might be tied to that trait. Aiden continued sharing his thoughts about Fam. Her sharp senses allowed her to notice Mizuki's hidden fear of fighting monsters. Because of that awareness, she was trying to fight in his place. A sharp taste of wild fruit lingered in his mouth after testing one he found nearby. While he reflected on Fam's determination and the resolve behind her chosen path as a fighter, the young beast girl suddenly ran toward him with excitement. Not far from there, Aiden quietly observed the group while standing beneath the trees. The older warrior had begun to understand the bond forming between Mizuki and Fam. As the journey continued, the 4th day of their expedition arrived, and the forest path gradually led them toward open land ahead. Soon the trees gave way to wide fields, stretching toward a distant settlement. A narrow road cut through the wheat, guiding their eyes toward a small community on a hill. Aiden explained that only 3 families and their serfs lived there. Despite the peaceful scenery, something felt wrong. The wheat fields were ready for harvest, yet not a single person could be seen working the land. Mizuki studied the silent area carefully, sensing that the emptiness carried a hidden warning moments later. Fam pointed toward a watchtower near the settlement. A figure stood at the top, watching them from afar using binoculars. Aiden confirmed the threat. Goblins had already noticed their presence, forcing the group to reconsider their approach. Mizuki, Fam, and Aiden moved quietly along the forest path while discussing the quest they had accepted. The mission was originally simple. Their task was to hunt the goblins that had been wandering near the village fields. According to the villagers, the goblins' hiding place had already been discovered. The group crouched low among the trees as they observed the surroundings. Aiden shared his suspicion that the entire settlement might already have turned into a goblin nest. The quiet fields and the lack of villagers supported his concern. Moments later, a group of goblins rushed down the path, armed with crude weapons and shields. Mizuki's expression tightened as he watched them approach. Aiden quickly formed a plan, deciding they would lure the goblins forward and strike the one leading the group. Enemies moved closer while the group prepared to fight. Mizuki instructed Fam to use a shield to block the arrows that the goblins might fire. The young beast girl nodded while readying herself for the coming clash, as Aiden raised his bow and released an arrow. The goblins suddenly halted. The creatures had already noticed the hidden party. Their shrill cries echoed through the forest, signaling that the battle had begun. Aiden's arrow struck the ground as the enemies rushed forward with raised weapons. Seeing that stealth was no longer possible, Aiden quickly moved out from their cover and ordered the others to engage directly. After the brief clash began, Aiden quickly judged the situation. Fighting too close to the forest would trap them between the enemies and the trees. Instead, he decided to pull the goblins farther away from their hidden positions. 3 adventurers ran along the narrow road while the goblins followed behind. Mizuki glanced back to observe the distance between them. The creatures continued chasing, but they were not rushing forward recklessly. Their movements seemed measured, as if they were waiting for the right moment to strike. The goblins were not planning a direct attack on the road. Instead, they wanted to draw the group closer to the village, where the battle would take place under conditions that favored them. Realizing the danger, Mizuki raised his voice and proposed a different course of action. Charging forward against a fortified location would require far more fighters than the 3 of them. A safer plan would be to shake off the pursuing goblins first, then return to town and request reinforcements before attempting another approach. As the group continued moving away from the goblins, Aiden quickly made a firm decision. He ordered Mizuki and Fam to return to town and contact the guild so the knights could be called in. The enemy numbers were too large for a small party to handle alone. Before Mizuki could respond properly, Fam suddenly pushed him aside. The goblins had quietly closed the distance while the group was still talking. Their attack came from the trees without warning. Seeing the enemies within striking range, Fam rushed forward with determination. She charged directly toward the goblins and cut down the one at the front with a swift strike. Her movements were fast and decisive, showing the skill she had trained for. Aiden fired arrows with precise aim while Mizuki stepped forward to assist the fight. He ordered Fam to focus on the goblin archers while leaving the wounded enemies to him. New goblins began appearing from the side, forcing Mizuki to adjust his position. The clash grew more intense as arrows and weapons filled the air. Aiden continued firing from behind, while the goblins shouted and rushed forward. The small battlefield echoed with the sounds of combat as the 3 adventurers fought to hold their ground. Fam lowered her weapon while catching her breath, believing the immediate danger had passed. Mizuki, however, quickly scanned the area with concern. Something about the battlefield felt wrong. After counting the fallen enemies, he realized that 1 goblin was missing. The creature had likely escaped during the fight. If 1 goblin had fled, it could report everything it had seen. Aiden understood the implication immediately. The escaping creature would most likely return to the village to warn the others waiting there. The realization brought new urgency to the situation. Mizuki rubbed the back of his neck while thinking carefully. If the goblins were already occupying the settlement, there was still a chance that villagers might be trapped inside. Fam looked at him with concern as the possibility of survivors was raised. Despite the concern, Mizuki quickly assessed their current condition. Both he and Fam had already spent too much energy during the fight. Continuing deeper into enemy territory would only place them in greater danger. He then suggested a cautious alternative. Instead of charging forward, they could remain within the forest and quietly observe the village from a safe distance. Gathering information first would allow them to understand the situation before making their next move. After the battle, the group stopped within the forest to reconsider their next move. Mizuki suggested sending Fam back to town so she could report the situation to the guild. Gathering information about the village first would help them decide what to do next. Mizuki hesitated and looked toward Aiden for guidance. The older warrior remained calm while watching the 2 of them. The pressure of the situation weighed heavily on Mizuki's mind as he tried to balance safety with responsibility. Aiden's earlier explanation about the loyalty of dog-eared people returned to Mizuki's thoughts. Fam's stubborn resolve was not simply emotion but part of her nature. Accepting that truth, Mizuki slowly understood that forcing her to leave would only create more problems. With the decision settled, Aiden proposed a careful plan. The 3 of them would split up to investigate the area without approaching the village directly. Aiden would move around the left side while Mizuki and Fam would circle to the right. Before separating, Aiden reminded them of the meeting point on the far side of the village near a stone pillar barrier. Once the investigation was complete, they would regroup there. Mizuki acknowledged the plan while Fam stood beside him, ready to move forward together. Mizuki and Fam walked quietly along the forest path as they followed the route assigned by Aiden. A sense of tension hung between them. Fam eventually broke the silence by asking if Mizuki was angry with her. Mizuki did not respond immediately, which made her expression grow more uneasy. That memory continued to weigh heavily on her heart. Because of that experience, she no longer wanted to stand by while others fought. Meeting Mizuki had given her the courage to become stronger. Mizuki listened carefully before explaining that neither of them were heroes. Seeing the seriousness in her expression, Mizuki gently placed his hand on her head and told her to calm down. The gesture helped ease her tension. After regaining her composure, Fam nodded quietly. Mizuki then turned and continued walking, signaling that they should keep moving with the investigation. As they walked deeper into the forest, Fam suddenly spoke again, with only the two of them present. She suggested a strange game as a way to grow closer. His composure collapsed as he reacted with loud confusion and embarrassment. Trying to steady himself, he raised a finger while admitting that the situation had pushed his nerves to the limit. Standing along the forest path, Fam suddenly celebrated with excitement after completing the strange challenge she had proposed earlier. Mizuki stood in front of her, surprised by her reaction. With the moment over, he believed their small diversion had finally ended, and suggested that they return to town soon. The two began walking again through the trees, continuing the investigation route assigned by Aiden. Mizuki kept his eyes forward while trying to stay focused on the mission. Behind him, Fam quietly followed while watching his reaction. As they moved deeper along the forest path, Mizuki thought about their eventual return to town. The situation in the village still needed to be reported to the guild, and reinforcements would likely be necessary before any further action could be taken. While walking beside him, Fam suddenly moved closer and wrapped her arms around Mizuki from behind. The unexpected gesture caught him completely off guard. Despite her cheerful smile, a hint of nervousness remained in her expression as the two continued their quiet journey. A quiet forest path stretches ahead as Mizuki and the beast-eared girl approach the outskirts of the town. From a distance, a lookout tower stands with goblins, posted on watch, though none of them appear to move. The lack of activity makes the situation unclear. Violent movement spreads through the tall grass as unseen creatures push their way forward. Several trails form at once, showing that multiple targets are moving through the field at high speed. The shaking grass creates a clear warning that something dangerous is approaching. Realizing the monsters may reach the town if left unchecked, the beast-eared girl decides they must stop them inside the forest. She quickly moves forward while Mizuki follows close behind. Moments later, the attackers reveal their forms as large wolves rushing through the grass. One of the beasts leaps forward toward them. Mizuki raises his hand and releases a burst of magic that strikes the wolf directly, stopping its charge midair. More wolves appear from the surrounding forest and begin circling the pair. Standing back to back, Mizuki and the beast-eared girl brace themselves for the fight. With a swift movement, the girl lunges forward and cuts toward an approaching wolf, while Mizuki prepares to deal with the rest of the pack. Bright bursts of magic appear around the beasts as Mizuki launches attacks to stop their advance. Despite the strikes, the wolves continue moving rapidly between the trees. The beast-eared girl swings her sword upward. One wolf suddenly lunges directly toward Mizuki. The creature crosses the distance in a single leap, forcing him to react immediately. His body shifts to the side as he raises his sword to block the incoming attack. Another wolf charges straight at him from the front. Mizuki tightens his grip on the sword and swings upward to intercept the attack. The blade cuts through the air as he pushes back against the rushing beast. Even while defending himself, the pressure from the pack continues to grow. Meanwhile, the beast-eared girl notices the disadvantage of fighting inside the forest where the wolves can move easily. She quickly signals that they should move toward the open field instead. Mizuki agrees with the plan and begins retreating with her while keeping his weapon ready. Reaching the tall grass of the field, the girl suddenly stops and faces the pursuing monsters. With both hands gripping her blades, she activates a powerful sword technique. Energy spreads outward as her attack prepares to strike the approaching wolves. Two wolves are caught in the attack and are thrown violently through the air. Their bodies spin as the force of the blow sends them crashing away from the fight. The remaining wolves quickly lose their momentum as the sudden counterattack breaks their formation. After the brief clash, the field grows quiet again. Mizuki observes the situation and realizes the wolves have been dealt with for the moment. Since they already moved out into the open field, returning to the forest would serve no purpose. He decides their next step should be meeting their ally, Aiden. With their decision made, Mizuki begins running across the field toward the town's lookout tower. Fam quickly follows behind him. The tall structure soon comes into view as they move through the grass together. Stopping near the tower, Mizuki raises his arms and loudly calls out toward the hidden watchers. He demands that the people hiding around the tower reveal themselves instead of continuing to stay concealed. Goblin archer suddenly appears and fires arrows toward them from the tower. Mizuki calmly raises his hand and releases magic to intercept the incoming projectiles. The glowing energy stops the arrows before they can reach him. While the goblin prepares another attack, Mizuki stands ready to confront the enemies guarding the tower. Mizuki immediately counters the attack from the watchtower. A fast projectile flies through the air and strikes the goblin archer directly. The enemy loses balance and is thrown from the tower, falling hard onto the ground below. Seeing the opening, Mizuki quickly signals Fam to move. Instead of waiting for more enemies to gather, he begins running across the field toward the forest path ahead. Fam follows closely behind as they leave the tower behind them. As they enter the forest trail, a large armored man suddenly appears and rushes toward them. The man is Aiden, the ally they had been searching for. Mizuki calls out to confirm his identity, while continuing to move forward along the path. The three finally stop and face each other in the forest. Aiden reacts with confusion and frustration at Mizuki's reckless approach. Fam also expresses her disbelief at Mizuki's actions. Mizuki remains calm and explains that the situation around them has already changed. After hearing Mizuki's explanation, the group discusses the earlier encounter. Mizuki concludes that the goblins and wolves were likely sent only to test them. Their true objective was probably to force the group away from the area, rather than defeat them directly. The group pauses in the forest to analyze the situation around the fort. Mizuki carefully considers the behavior of the goblins they encountered earlier. Their actions suggest that the enemy force is not very large and does not truly want a full battle at the fort. Fam recalls how the enemies avoided retaliating even when provoked before. While thinking about the strange behavior, Fam suddenly remembers something important. During the earlier confrontation, she noticed faint voices coming from inside the fort. The sound seemed like people calling for help. This realization quickly changes the mood of the group. Aiden raises his massive hammer without hesitation. With the possibility that people are still alive inside the fort, he decides that waiting is no longer an option. The only solution now is to force their way inside. Mizuki and Fam step back slightly while Aiden prepares his weapon. The heavy hammer lifts into the air as he gathers his strength for a powerful strike. With a loud swing, Aiden brings the hammer down toward the gate using a powerful technique. The massive weapon crashes forward with overwhelming force, aiming to break through the barrier and open the path into the fort. Aiden's hammer crashes into the wooden gate with tremendous force. The thick barrier shatters instantly, sending splinters and debris flying in every direction. The massive impact opens a wide path straight into the fort. Inside the fort, chaos unfolds as goblins rush through the streets. Several of the creatures scatter in different directions after noticing the sudden breach. The three adventurers move quickly across the damaged ground while keeping their weapons ready. Fam immediately leaps into battle. Her blades sweep through the air as she cuts through the goblins blocking their path. The swift attack sends several enemies collapsing to the ground. Her rapid movements create a clear opening for the others to advance deeper into the fort. Mizuki and Aiden also join the fight. Mizuki swings his sword to strike down a wolf-like monster that lunges toward him. Nearby, Aiden raises his hammer again and slams it down with crushing strength. Just as the group pushes forward, a towering figure appears ahead of them. The massive armored goblin grips a heavy weapon and stands far larger than the others. The presence of this powerful enemy signals that they have encountered the leader of the invading force, the Goblin King. Its massive weapon swings downward toward Aiden with crushing force. The attack shakes the ground as the monster roars fiercely, showing its overwhelming strength. Aiden barely manages to react as the enormous enemy presses the attack without hesitation. Recovering quickly, Aiden rolls away from the strike and regains his footing. The heavy hammer in his hand swings forward as he launches a powerful counterattack. His weapon slams toward the Goblin King, attempting to break through the monster's defense. The Goblin King turns slightly after the impact, showing that the blow has not fully stopped it. Aiden watches carefully, realizing that the enemy is far tougher than the goblins they fought earlier. The massive creature remains standing, its presence dominating the battlefield. Seeing the danger, Mizuki quickly shifts the plan. Instead of joining the direct fight against the Goblin King, he decides to remove the smaller enemies surrounding the area. Mizuki and Fam rush forward together, cutting down the goblins that try to interfere with the battle. While Mizuki clears the field, the Goblin King suddenly strikes again. Its powerful kick slams directly into Aiden, sending the armored warrior flying backward across the ground. The impact forces him away from the fight. Mizuki steadies his breathing while facing the Goblin King. Aiden's earlier advice echoes in his mind, reminding him to control his stance and stay balanced. His feet adjust on the ground as he grips the sword firmly with both hands. Rather than rushing forward blindly, he forces himself to calm down and think clearly. Deciding to act first, Mizuki steps forward and seizes the initiative. His body moves quickly as he raises the sword and aims directly at the Goblin King. The monster lifts its weapon to counter, preparing a brutal strike. The distance between them closes in an instant. He blade swings toward the enemy with determination. The attack targets the Goblin King's neck in an attempt to finish the fight quickly. For a brief moment, the strike appears perfectly timed. However, the massive creature reacts faster than expected. A powerful counterattack crashes into Mizuki before his strike can land. The impact sends him flying backward across the ground. His body tumbles through the dirt as the force throws him away from the battle. Moments later, Mizuki lies on the ground, badly shaken from the blow. Fam quickly runs toward him with concern. Dirt and scratches cover his body as he struggles to regain focus. Above the fort, the air suddenly fills with falling arrows descending from the sky. Fam shouts in alarm as she sees Mizuki still lying on the ground after the heavy blow. The battlefield grows tense as another wave of danger approaches.